Under the heavy hush of dusk, the village of Njoka slumbered beneath a sky as old as sorrow, its air thick with secrets and the slow, smoky breath of dying fires. The baobab trees, ancient and gnarled, stood, sentinel at the village's edge, their roots tangled like the stories whispered by old women in the dark. The earth here was red and rich, stained by blood and memory, and every grain of sand carried 1,000 tales, some told, most buried. Imani walked alone, her feet bare, feeling the pulse of the land through her soles. Each step she took pressed into the soil, stirring something restless beneath her body, moved with the memory of dances learned in childhood, dances meant for rain, for birth, for mourning. But tonight her dance was for neither life nor loss. It was for justice, for vengeance for her sister. The moon hung low, swollen and yellow. A bruised eye watching her journey shadows clung to Imani's back. But one shadow was heavier than the rest, a presence silent and cold that moved with her. Her sister gone, but not gone. Lingered at the edge of sight, a ghost woven from pain and longing. The path to the old shrine was overgrown, lined with weeds and thorny bushes. The villagers avoided it, fearing what had once happened there, what might happen again. But Imani pressed on, guided by a rhythm. Only she could hear a low, insistent drumming that seemed to rise from the earth itself, ancient and angry. She remembered the night her sister died. The rhythm had been different then, wild and triumphant, echoing from the heart of the village as Obasi, priest, drummer, murderer, LED, the ritual. No one dared stop him. His drum was sacred, carved from the heartwood of the oldest tree, stretched tight with the skin of a beast that had never known fear. It was said that Obasi's music could call rain, summon spirits, and drive men mad. That night, it had called death Imani's sister. Nia had been chosen, the ritual demanded sacrifice, and the drum demanded blood. When the dancing ended, Nia's body lay broken, her spirit torn from flesh by a rhythm too powerful to resist. The villagers wept, but none spoke against Obasi. Fear, tradition, and the weight of history kept their tongues still. But Imani had not forgotten. She had left the village carrying her grief like a wound. But now she had returned, her heart hardened by distance, and her purpose sharpened by pain. She would not dance for rain or for peace. She would dance for reckoning. The shrine loomed ahead, its stones slick with moss, its entrance yawning like a mouth hungry for stories. Imani paused, listening. The drumming grew louder, though no hands touched the skin of any drum. It was Obasi's spirit, trapped yet triumphant, calling her forward. She stepped inside. The air was cool and thick with incense. The scent of myrrh and ash candles flickered on the altar, their flames trembling as if afraid. In the center of the room sat the drum, massive and dark, its surface polished by years of ritual. Symbols were carved into its sides, spirals, eyes, and the twisted shapes of things best left unnamed. The drum seemed to breathe, its surface pulsing with a life of its own. Imani approached her body, swaying to the rhythm only she could feel. She closed her eyes and let the music take her. Let it fill her veins and bones. She moved as her mother had taught her, as her grandmother had before. Each gesture a word in a language older than speech. Her arms sliced the air. Her feet stamped the earth. Her hips rolled with the memory of rivers and storms. The drum answered her. Its sound, deep and hungry shadows gathered at the edges of the shrine. Twisting and writhing, the air grew thick, pressing against her skin like a lover's hand. She felt Obasi's presence hot and cruel, circling her like a predator. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere, a whisper in the dark. "You come to dance, little girl. You come to beg for your sister's soul." Imani did not answer. She danced. Harder, faster, her breath coming in ragged gasps, sweat slicked her skin. Her heart pounded in time with the drum. She felt the weight of her ancestors behind her, their strength flowing through her limbs. She was not alone. Obasi's laughter echoed low and mocking. "No one survives my rhythm. No one ever has." Imani's feet struck the ground with fury. She called upon the spirits of the land, the mothers and daughters who had suffered before her. She called upon the memory of her sister, whose life had been stolen, but whose spirit still burned. She called upon the power of black women, of those who had endured and resisted and risen. The drumbeat faltered, then surged, desperate and wild. The shadows thickened, reaching for her with cold, greedy fingers. Imani spun and twisted her movements, sharp and defiant. She would not be taken. She would not be broken. She began to sing, her voice raw and powerful, weaving words of power into the rhythm. The song was an old one, a song of mourning and revenge, of love and loss. The walls of the shrine shook, dust falling from the ceiling like tears. Obasi's voice grew frantic. "Stop, you do not know what you awaken," but Imani danced on her body a weapon. Her spirit unyielding, she felt the drums. Power waver, felt Obasi's grip weaken. The shadows recoiled, shrieking. The air crackled with energy, the line between life and death blurring suddenly that the drum split open with a thunderous crack, a sound like the sky tearing a burst of darkness. Erupted from its heart, swirling around Imani. She stood firm, her feet planted in the earth, her arms raised in defiance. The darkness coalesced into a figure, Obasi, his eyes wild with rage and fear. He lunged at her, but Imani did not flinch. She met his gaze, her own eyes blazing with the fire of 1,000 ancestors. "You killed my sister?" she said, her voice steady. "You killed many, but tonight your power ends." Obasi snarled, but his form flickered, growing thin and insubstantial. Imani lifted, her hands' palms open, and spoke the final words of her song, a command, a curse, a release. The darkness shrieked, twisting and writhing, then shattered like glass. Obasi's spirit was torn apart, scattered to the winds. The drum collapsed, its power broken. Silence fell heavy and absolute. Imani stood alone, trembling but unbowed. The shadows faded, the air cleared. She felt her sister's presence beside her, warm and gentle. "Thank you." Nia's voice whispered, soft as dawn. Imani smiled through her. Tears she had danced for justice, and justice had answered. She left the shrine, stepping into the cool night. The village was quiet, the air sweet with possibility. The baobab trees watched her go, their branches swaying in silent approval. In the days that followed, the villagers whispered of what had happened. Some said the shrine was cursed, others that it had been cleansed, but all agreed that something had changed. The fear that had hung over Njoka for so long was gone, replaced by a new sense of hope. Imani stayed for a time, teaching the children the old dances, telling them the stories of their ancestors. She spoke of courage and resistance, of the power that lay within them. She honored her sister's memory not with mourning but with life. And when the time came to leave, she did so, with her head held high, her heart full. She knew that the land remembered, that the spirits watched, that justice once awakened could never again be silenced. But in the deepest part of the night, when the moon was high and the wind whispered through the trees, Imani would sometimes hear the faintest echo of a drumbeat, soft, mournful, and free. She would smile, knowing that some stories once told are never forgotten in the years that followed. Njoka changed. The children grew strong, learning from Imani, the dances that had once been forbidden, the songs that had been silenced. The women gathered beneath the baobab trees, sharing wisdom and laughter, their voices rising in harmony. The men listened, learning to honor the power of their mothers, sisters, and daughters. The land healed slowly, as wounds always do. The earth once stained by blood and fear blossomed with new life. Crops flourished, the rivers ran clear, and the spirits of the ancestors walked proudly once more. But the memory of Obasi lingered, a warning and a lesson the villagers remembered: the cost of silence, the danger of unchecked power. They honored Imani not as a hero, but as a reminder that justice is not given. It is claimed Imani herself became a legend, her story told in whispers and shouts, in dance and song. Children played at being her, stamping their feet and spinning in the dust, their laughter ringing through the village. Old women blessed her name. Young girls dreamed of her courage. And though Imani traveled far, her heart always remained in Njoka, bound to the land and the people she had saved. She carried her sister spirit with her, a constant companion, a source of strength wherever she went. She danced in cities and villages, in fields and forests. She danced for those who could not, for those who had been silenced, for those who still waited for justice. Her feet stirred the earth, her arms summoned the wind, her voice called forth the ancestors. She became a force, a storm, a song that could not be stilled. And so in the village of Njoka, beneath the watchful eyes of the baobab trees, the story of Imani and her dance was passed down through generations. It became a part of the land, a memory etched into every stone and leaf. Because in Africa, some horror stories are not myths, they are memories, and some memories are too powerful to ever be forgotten. Imani's journey did not end with Obasi's defeat. The world was wide and the shadows long. There were other villages, other drums, other evils lurking in the dark. She traveled from place to place, seeking out the stories that others would not tell, the wounds that others would not heal. In each new place, she found echoes of her own pain. Women mourning their children, men broken by grief, children haunted by nightmares. She listened to their stories, shared their burdens, and taught them the dances of resistance. She became a legend, a whisper on the wind, a promise that justice would come. Her name was spoken with reverence and hope. Her footsteps followed by those who dared to dream of a better world. But Imani never forgot Njoka, the village where it all began. She returned often to visit her mother's grave, to dance beneath the baobab trees, to remind herself of who she was and what she had fought for. The villagers welcomed her with open arms, their faces alight with joy. The children ran to her, eager to learn new dances, to hear new stories. The women embraced her, their eyes shining with pride. Imani would sit with them beneath the stars, sharing tales of her travels, her victories and defeats. She spoke of the power of community, of the importance of standing together against darkness. She reminded them that they were not alone, that their voices mattered, that their stories deserved to be heard. And as the fire burned low and the night grew quiet, Imani would rise and begin to dance. The villagers would join her, their bodies moving in harmony, their spirits lifted by the rhythm together. They would reclaim the night, turning fear into strength, sorrow into joy. For in Njoka and in villages across the land, the power of the dance endured. It was more than movement, it was memory, it was magic, it was resistance, it was a promise that no matter how deep the darkness, the light would always return. Imani's story became a beacon, a guide for those who struggled against injustice. Her courage inspired others to rise, to speak, to fight. The world changed slowly but surely as the old ways were reclaimed and the old wounds healed. And though there were always new challenges, new evils to face, Imani faced them with the strength of her ancestors, the love of her sister, and the unbreakable spirit of a black woman who danced for justice. Because in Africa and in all the world, some stories are not meant to be forgotten. They are meant to be lived. And so the dance continues, step by step, beat by beat, memory by memory, forever. The story of Imani, the dancer who awakened the dead and defeated the darkness, lived on in the hearts of all who heard it. It became a song, a prayer, a promise. And as long as there were those who remembered, as long as there were those who danced, the world would never again be silent, for justice once awakened never sleeps, and neither does hope. And so, the drum fell silent, not because the evil was gone, but because justice had finally learned how to dance. If this story moved you, haunted you, don't keep it to yourself. Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to Tales of Black for more stories, where Africa speaks through shadows. Hit the bell, because the next tale may wake something in you.